I am not feeling the greatest. I spent yesterday just kind of, spent today mostly in bed. So I think I'm gonna I had itchy leg. I think I'm just gonna sit here and read a little bit. I'm reading the regulators also. That's what my own little book is. I read all the other Bauchman books, so I know I sound like crap. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and read a bit after I check on a few things. Sorry, I'm making sure that my stream is going well. It's all connected, all ready to go. And once I do that, it should be good. Anyway, yeah, I know I'm a little slow-brained today. I got the dogs in the background. I'm going to get it out of the way. I got the dogs in the background eating bones. At least one of them. I don't know where Phoebe is. Is that Phoebe? She's quiet. So they're in trouble. Like, she spent a half an hour in a crate earlier today just calming down because when my daughter's boyfriend came over, I went to open the door and she was jumping up on the door and she got to it first. So she runs out, she's barking at him, and then she takes off down the stairs before we can grab her collar. And then there goes Harley doing it. And then Timber. And of course Timber had to run down the sidewalk, so then the other two ran after him. So we grabbed the van, we head on down, because I ain't running. I ain't got no shoes on, let alone run. And so you got my oldest son, my daughter, who's the youngest, and her boyfriend all running after him, me and my husband in the car. So we get all the way down the street, and we get halfway across the football field, and we get Harley. There's one. So then the other two are still running. And they're running here, and they're running there, and they're running up into yards, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to get hit by a car. So then we turn a corner right across from where the football field ends. There's a road. Sorry, I'm yawning. Okay, so our football field ends, and then there's like a small field, and then there's a road to get to the park. And across from that road is a brick road. They go up this road, and we get Phoebe in. There's two. And I'm fighting with Phoebe to keep her in the back seat because she doesn't need to be in the front seat. Front seat is for when you're good. So we go back down that road, and we turn to continue that way to chase Timber. And we have to turn around, and I backed the van up, and finally I just took the last driveway, and I spun it around.
What was for dinner?
And fend for yourself. I'm not cooking. I can't. I don't have the energy. So he heads back. First he crosses, then he starts heading back. And I'm backing up as he's going side to side. And I get turned around, and somehow, right before the football field, he stops. Hi. He stops. And yes, can I help you? Can I help you? And so we finally, my oldest son caught him. My daughter grabs him. I give them a leash. He has no collar, so they had to wrap it around him, kind of. So they get him. They walk home. I got the other two. Got them leashes, got them in the house, straight to the crate. Phoebe went because she was the instigator. She went to bed for a little bit. Spent 30 minutes in there, didn't you? What? It's my book. You can't eat the book. What are you doing? What? Okay, come here. What is it? What is it? What is it? Suddenly I'm down here and suddenly now you have to be all up in my face. What? What? Oh, I got you. I made her get down because I touched applause. Yes.
Can I have some pancakes? Like make some?
Not right now. We're going to make them tomorrow. Tomorrow's the weekend. And Tristan will be awake and Dad will be awake and maybe I'll have more energy.
What waffles? That Tristan bought for himself.
What?
The circle ones with the lines.
You mean the waffles that are gone?
No, this. They were in the mug in there.
How many's left?
2.
Oh, well, Tristan? Tristan? Can your brother have the 2 last waffles? What do you say?
Thank you, Tristan.
He goes, yes. You guys are not going to let me read, are you? You can be up my butt. Do you need to go outside? No? Okay. Well, then what do you need? You just want to lick my hand and... You're still in trouble. You got out and you ran that way. What was you thinking? What was you thinking? Besides being the first one to get in the car. You got to go on the longest ride, didn't you? To chase the others.
Yeah, because he's a troublemaker.
No, Phoebe was a troublemaker today. She was the instigator. She's the one that opened the door and then the others just followed her. Timber was like, freedom! He usually does. He hasn't run off in a long time. It's been like a really long time. And so that was unusual. Harley doesn't usually run off either. So, but Phoebe, when Timber ran off, she went right beside him. I got your ears. What are you doing? You have your bone. What do you need? What? I want to read. Do I get to read? No. We're reading The Running Man. We're on 069.
Mama, panic, more eggs.
Hold up. Feed the dogs, please.
Okay.
Before you start to make your eggs, feed the dogs real quick. That might be, being that it's almost 7 o'clock, that might be what's up. Because there goes Phoebe. And there goes Harley. Don't forget Timber.
I know.
So get theirs first. Fish on these little birds. Nope, just the one. Really? This is why I said just the one. There you go. Now you gotta stick another scoop in there. Yeah. Go crazy. I apologize for the yawning. It's probably just because I've just gotten up a little bit ago.
Go on. Beeps, quick.
The reason we feed her in the crate is because they like to argue over their food, keeping her in the crate. She sleeps in the crate, she eats in the crate, and then she runs around the rest of the time. So, yeah. So, we left off Ben Richards. He had descended to the basement. So, he saw all the cars there, all the people that he thought were hunters, and he escaped to the basement. So, this is where we're going to start off. All right? Minus 069 and counting. I apologize. Huge rusted heating pipes festooned with cobwebs crawled crazily all over the ceiling. When the furnace kicked on suddenly, Richard almost screamed in terror. The surge of adrenaline to his limbs and heart was painful. For a moment, almost incapacitating. There were newspapers here, too, Richard saw. Thousands of them. Stacked up and tied with string, the rats had nested with them by the thousands, while families stared out at the interloper with ruby, distrustful eyes. He began to walk away from the elevator, pausing halfway across the cracked cement floor. There was a large fuse box bolted to a supporting post, and behind it, leaning against the other side, a litter of tools. Richards took the crowbar and continued to walk, keeping his eyes on the floor. Near the far wall, he spied the main storm drain to his left. So he walked over and looked at it, wondering in the back of his mind if they knew he was down there yet. The storm drain was constructed of vented steel. It was about 3 feet across, and on the far side there was a slot for the crowbar. Richard slipped it in, levered up the cover, and then put one foot on the crowbar to hold it. He got his hands under the lip of the cover and pushed it over. It fell to the cement with a clang that made the rats squeak with dismay. The pipe beneath slanted down at a 45-degree angle, and Richards guessed that its bore could be no more than 2.5 feet. He's going to sneak into a 2.5-foot hole. It was very dark. Claustrophobia suddenly filled his mouth with flannel. Too small to maneuver in, almost too small to breathe in, but it had to be. And then there's my watery eyes that I am going to just use my cloth on because I can't. So, let's see. He turned the storm drain cover back over and edged it toward the pipe entrance, just enough so that he could grip it from beneath once he was down there. Then he walked over to the fuse box, hammered the padlock off with the crowbar, and shoved it open. He was about to begin pulling fuses when another idea occurred to him. He walked over to the newspapers, which lay in dirty yellow drifts against the whole eastern length of the cellar. Then he ferreted out the folded and dog-eared book of matches he had been lighting his smokes with. There were 3 left. He yanked out a sheet of paper and formed it into a spill, held it under his arm like a dunce cap, and lit the match. The first one gutted out in a draft. The second one fell out of his trembling hand and hissed out on the damp concrete. The third stayed alight. He held it to his newspaper spill, and yellow flame bloomed. A rat appeared, sensing that what was to come, and ran across his foot and into the darkness. I can't imagine that many rats. A terrible sense of urgency filled him now, and yet he waited until the spill was flaming a foot high. He had no more matches. Carefully, he tucked it into a fissure in the chest-high paper. Now, if this guy is like almost 6 foot, a little over 6 foot, that's a lot of paper. Chest-high paper wall, and waited until he saw that the fire was spreading. The huge oil tank, which serviced the Y, was built into the adjoining wall. Perhaps it would blow. Richards thought it would. Trotting now, he went back to the fuse box and began ripping it out, a large tube of fuses. He got most of them before the basement lights went out. He felt his way across to the storm drain, aided by the glowing, flickering light of the burning papers. He sat down with his feet dangling, and then slowly eased in. When his head was below the level of the floor, he pressed his knees against the sides of the pipe to hold himself steady, and he worked his arms up above his head. It was slow work. There was very, very little room to move. The light of the fire was brilliant yellow now, and the crackling sound of burning filled his ears. Then his groping fingers found the lip of the drain, and he slid them up until he gripped the vented cover. He yanked it forward slowly, supporting more and more of the weight with the muscles of his back and neck. When he judged that the far edge of the cover was on the edge of dropping into place, he gave one last fierce tug. The cover dropped into place with a clang, bending both Richard's wrists back cruelly. Richard let his knees relax, and he slid downward like a boy shooting the chutes. The pipe was coated with slime, ew, and he slid effortlessly about 12 feet to where the pipe elbow bent into a straight line. His feet struck smartly, and he stood there like a drunk leaning against a lamppost. But he couldn't get into the horizontal pipe. The elbow vent was too sharp. The taste of the claustrophobia became huge. Gagging, trapped, his mouth babbled. Trapped in here. Trapped. A steel scream rose in his throat, and he choked it down. Calm down. Sure, it's very hackneyed, very trite, but he must be very calm down there. Very calm. Because we're at the bottom of this pipe, and we can't get up, and we can't get down. And if the fucking oil tank goes boom, we are going to be cascaded very neatly, and suddenly he began to wiggle around until his chest was against the pipe instead of his back, and the slime coating acted as a lubricant, helping his movements. It was very bright in the pipe now, and getting warmer. The vented cover threw prison bar shadows on his struggling face. Once leaning against his chest and belly and groin, with his knees bending the right way, he could slip further, letting his calves and feet slide into the horizontal pipe until he was in the praying position. Still no good. His buttocks were pushed against the solid ceramic facing above the entrance of the horizontal pipe. Faintly, it seemed that he could hear shouted commands above the heavy crackle of the fire, but it must have been his imagination, which was now strained and fevered beyond the point of trust. He began to flex his muscles of his thighs and calves in a tiring seesaw rhythm, and little by little, his knees began to slide out from under him. He worked his hands up over his head again and gave himself more room, and now his face lay solidly against the slime of the pipe. He was very close to fitting now. He swayed his back as much as he could and began to push with his arms and head, the only things left in any position to give him leverage. When he had begun to think there was not enough room, Wait. I missed a step somewhere. There was not enough room, that he was going to simply hang there, unable to move either way. His lips and buttocks suddenly popped through the horizontal... His hips and buttocks, wow, suddenly popped through the horizontal pipe opening like a champagne cork from a tight bottleneck. The small of his back scraped excruciatingly as his knees slid out from under him, and his shirt rucked up to his shoulder blades. Then he was in the horizontal pipe, except for his head and arms, which were bent back at a joint twisting angle. He wiggled the rest of the way in and then paused there, panting, his face streaked with slime and rat droppings, the skin of his lower back abraded and oozing blood. This pipe was narrower still. His shoulders scraped lightly on both sides with time each time his chest rose in respiration. Thank God I'm underfed. Panting, he began to back into the unknown darkness of the pipe. So we're stuck in a pipe of darkness and slime and rat poo. Ew. Minus 068 and counting. He made slow mole-like progress, for about 50 yards through the horizontal pipe, backing up blindly. Then the oil tank at the Wise basement suddenly blew with a roar that set up enough sympathetic vibrations in the pipes to nearly rupture his eardrums. There was a yellow-white flash, as if the pile of phosphorus had ignited. It faded to a rosary, shifting glow. A few minutes later, a blast of thermal air struck him in the face, making him grin painfully. Ouch! The tape camera in his jacket pocket swung and bounced as he tried to back up faster. The pipe was packing up heat from the fierce explosion and fire that was raging somewhere above him. The way the handle of a skillet picks up heat from a gas ring. And Richards had no urge to be baked down here like a potato in a Dutch oven. Sweat rolled down his face, mixed with the black streaks of ordure already there, making him look, in a waxing and waning glow of the reflected fire, like an Indian painted of war. The sides of the pipe were hot to the touch now. Lobster-like, Richards humped backwards on his knees and forearms, his buttocks raising to smack the top of the pipe at every movement. His breath came in sharp, dog-like gasps. The air was hot, full of the slick taste of oil, uncomfortable to breathe. A headache surfaced within his skull and began to push daggers into the backs of his eyes. I'm going to fry in here. I'm going to fry. I think his feet were suddenly dangling in the air. Richards tried to peer through his legs and see what was there, but it was too dark behind, and his eyes were too dazzled by the light in front. He would have to take his chances. He backed up until his knees were on the edge of the pipe's ending, and then slid them cautiously over. His shoes were suddenly in water, cold and shocking after the heat of the pipe. A new pipe ran at right angles to one of Richard's had just come through, and it was much larger, big enough to stand and bent over. The thick, slowly moving water came up over his ankles. He paused for just a moment to stare back into the tiny pipe with its soft circle of reflecting fire glow. The fact that he could see any glow at all from this distance meant that it must have been very Big Bang indeed. Richards reluctantly forced himself to know it would be their job to assume him alive rather than dead in the inferno of the YMCA basement. But perhaps they would not discover the way he had taken until the fire was under control. That seemed a safe assumption. But it seemed safe to assume that they could not trace him to Boston, too. So, if they traced him to Boston, it means that they could trace him anywhere. Maybe they didn't, after all. What did you really see? No, it had to be them. He knew it, the hunters. They had even carried the odor of evil. It had wafted up to his fifth-floor room on invisible psychic thermals. A rat dog paddled past him, pausing to look up briefly with glittering eyes. Richard splashed clumsily off after it, in the direction the water was flowing. Minus 067 and counting. Richard stood by the ladder, looking up, dumbfounded by the light. No regular traffic, which was something but light. The light was surprisingly because it had seemed that he had been walking in the sewers for hours, piled upon hours, in the darkness with no visual input and no sound but the gurgle of water, the occasional soft splash of a rat, and the ghostly thumpings in other pipes. What happens if someone flashes a joint over my head? Richards wondered morbidly. His time sense had been utterly destroyed. You leaving? What's up? I was just wondering. I'm going to read. Okay. Now looking up at the manhole cover, some 15 feet above him, he saw that the light had not yet faded out of the day. There were several circular breather holes in the cover, and the pencil-sized rays of light pressed points of sun on his chest and shoulders. No air cars had passed over the cover since he had gotten there. Only an occasional heavy ground vehicle and a fleet of Honda cycles. It made him suspect that more by good luck and the law of averages than by inner sense of direction, he had managed to find his way to the core of the city, to his people, to his own people. Still, he didn't dare go up until dark. To pass time, he took out the tape camera, popped it in the clip, and began recording his chest. He knew the tapes were fast light, able to take advantage of the least available light, and he did not want to give away too much of his surroundings. He did no talking or capering this time. He was too tired. When the tape was done, he put it in the other exposed clip. He wished he could rid himself of the nagging suspicion, almost a certainty, that the tapes were pinpointing him. There had to be a way to beat that. Had to. He sat down stolidly on the third rung of the ladder to wait for dark. He had been running for nearly 30 hours. And we have 30 days to get through. Minus 066 and counting. The boy, 7 years old, black, smoking a cigarette, leaned close to the mouth of the alley, watching the street. There had been a sudden, slight movement in the street where there had been none before. Shadows moved, rested, moved again. The manhole cover was rising. It paused, and something, eyes, glimmered. The cover suddenly slid away with a clang. Someone or something, the boy thought, with a trace of fear, was moving out there. Maybe the devil was coming out of hell to get Cassie, he thought. Ma said Cassie was going to heaven to be with Dickie and the other angels. The boy thought that was bullshit. Everybody went to hell when they died, and the devil jabbed them in the ass with a pitchfork. He had seen a picture of the devil in the books Bradley had snuck out of the Boston Public Library. Heaven was for push freaks. The devil was the man. It could be the devil, he thought, as Richard suddenly boosted himself out of the manhole and leaned for a second on the seamed and split cement to get his breath back. No tail and no horns. Not red like that in the book, like in that book, but the mother looked crazy and mean enough. Now he was pushing the cover back, and now, holy Jesus, he was running toward the alley. The boy grunted, tried to run, and fell over his own feet. He was trying to get up, scrambling and dropping things, and the devil suddenly grabbed him. Don't stick me with it, he screamed in the throat-closed whisper. Don't stick me with no fork, you sumbitch. Shh, shut up, the devil shook him, making his teeth rattle like marbles in his head, and the boy shut up. The devil peered around in an ecstasy of apprehension. The expression on his face was almost farcical in its extreme fear. The boy was reminded of the comical fellows on that game show, Swim the Crocodiles. He would have laughed if he hadn't been so frightened himself. You ain't the devil, the boy said. You'll think I am if you yell. I ain't gonna, the boy said contemptuously. What do you think? I'm gonna get my balls cut off? Jesus, I ain't even big enough to come yet. You know a quiet place we can go? Don't kill me, man. I ain't got nothing. The boy's eyes, white in the darkness, rolled up at him. I ain't gonna kill you. Holding his hand, the boy led Richards down the twisting, littered alley and into another. At the end, just before the alley opened onto the air shaft between two faceless high-rise buildings. The boy led him into a lean-to building of scrounged boards and bricks. It was built for 4 feet, and Richard banged his head going in. I wonder why. The boy pulled a dirty swatch of black cloth across the opening and fiddled with something. A moment later, a weak glow lit their faces, and the boy hooked a small light bulb to an old, cracked car battery. "I keefed that battery myself," the boy said. "Bradley told me how to fix it up. He's got books. I got a nickel bag, too. I'll give it to you if you don't kill me. You better not. Bradley's in the stabbers. You kill me and he'll make you shit in your boot and eat it." "I ain't doing any killings," Richard said impatiently. "At least, not little kids." "I ain't no little kid. I kiffed the fucking battery myself." The look of injury forced a dented grin to Richard's face. "All right. What's your name, kid?" "Ain't no kid." Then sulkily, "Stacy." "Okay, Stacy, good. I'm on the run. You believe that?" "Yeah, you on the run. You didn't come out of that manhole to buy dirty postcards." He stared speculatively at Richards. "You a honky? Kind hard to tell with all that dirt. Stacy, he broke off and ran a hand through his hair. When he spoke again, he seemed to be talking to himself. "I gotta trust somebody, and it turns out to be a kid. A kid. Hot Jesus. You ain't even 6, boy." "I'm 8 in March," the boy said angrily. "My sister Casey's got cancer," he added. "She screams a lot. That's why I like it here. Kiff that fucking battery myself. You want a toke up, mister? No, and you don't either. You want $2, Stacy?" "Christ, yes." Distrust slid over his eyes. "You didn't come out of no manhole with $2. That's bullshit." Richards produced a new dollar and gave it to the boy. He stared at it with awe that was close to horror. "There's another one if you bring your brother," Richards said. And seeing his expression, added swiftly, "I'll give it to you on the side so he won't see. Bring him alone. Won't do no good to try and kill Bradley, man. He'll make you shit in your boot and eat it. I know. You run and get him. Wait until he's alone. $3. No. Listen, man, for $3, I can get Cassie some stuff at the drug, and then she won't scream so fucking much." The man's face suddenly worked as if someone the boy couldn't see had punched him. "All right, 3. New dollars?" the boy persisted. "Yes, for Christ's sake, yes. Now get him. If you bring the cops, you ain't getting anything." The boy paused, half in and half out of his little cubbyhole. "You stupid if you think I do that. I hate them funkin' oinkers. Worse than anyone, even the devil." He left a 7-year-old boy with Richard's life in his grubby, scabbed hands. Richards was too tired to be really afraid. He turned off the light, leaned back, and dozed off. 065. Minus 065 and counting. Dreaming sleep had just begun when his tight-strung senses ripped him back to wakefulness. Confused in a dark place, the beginning of the nightmare had held him for a moment, and he thought that some huge police dog was coming for him, a terrifying organic weapon 7 feet high. He almost cried aloud before Stacy made the real world fall into place by hissing, "If he broke my fucking leg, I'm gonna..." The boy was violently shushed. The cloth across the entrance rippled, and Richards turned on the light. He was looking at Stacy in another black. The new fellow was maybe 18, Richards guessed, wearing a cycle jacket, looking at Richards with a mix of hate and interest. The switchblade clicked out and glittered in Bradley's hand. "If you're healed, drop it down." "I'm not." "I don't believe that he broke off and his eyes widened. "Hey, you're that guy from the freebie. the freebie, you off the YMCA on Huntington Avenue. The lowering blackness of his face was slit by the involuntary grin. They said you fried 5 cops. That probably meant 15. He come out of the manhole, Stacy said impatiently. I knew it wasn't the devil right away. I knew it was some hunky sumbitch. You gonna cut him, Bradley? Just shut up and let me talk. Bradley came the rest of the way inside, squatting awkwardly, and sat across from Richards on the splintery orange crate. He looked at the blade in his hand, seemed surprised to see it still there, and closed it up. You're hotter than the sun, man, he said finally. That's true. Where are you going to get to? I don't know. I got to get out of Boston. Bradley sat in silent thought. You got to come home with me and Stacy. We got to talk. And we can't do it here. Too open. All right, Richard said wearily. I don't care. We go the back way. The pigs are cruising tonight. Now I know why. When Bradley led him out the way out, Stacy kicked Richard sharply in the shin. For a moment, Richard stared at him, not understanding, and then remembered. He slipped the boy $3, $3 new, and Stacy made it disappear. Got what he wanted out of it, didn't he? Minus 064 and counting. The woman was very old. Richard thought he had never seen anyone as old. She was wearing a cotton print house dress with a large rip under one arm. An ancient wrinkle dug swayed back and forth against the rip as she went about making the meal that Richard's new dollars had purchased. The nicotine yellow fingers diced and pared and peeled. Her feet, splayed into grotesque boat shapes by years of standing, were clad in pink terrycloth slippers. Her hair looked as if it might have been self-waved by an iron held in a trembling hand. It was pushed back into a kind of... Why are we listening to that? Hey!
Yeah.
Can you turn it down a little bit, please? Please? Can you turn it down a little bit?
Yeah.
You just turn it down. You didn't have to stop it. Her hair looked as if it might have been self-waved by an iron held in a trembling hand. It was pushed back into a kind of pyramid by the twisted hairnet, which had gone askew at the back of her head. Her face was a delta of time, no longer brown or black, but grayish, switched with a radiating galaxy of wrinkles, pouches, and sags. Her toothless mouth worked craftily at a cigarette held there, blowing out puffs of blue smoke that seemed to hang above and behind her a little bunched blue balls. What are you watching? What is that?
It's Family Guy.
Oh, good Lord. Did you fast forward it?
Yeah, I'm making a slow motion.
Ah. She puffed back and forth, describing a triangle between counter, skillet, and table. Wow. Her cotton stockings were rolled at the knee, and above them, the flapping hem of her dress, varicose veins bunched in cock springs. Cock springs.
Just give me a second.
What?
Okay.
I don't want to watch something that's fast forwarded.
Where are you?
Brian looks like a donkey. Is Brian turning into a horse?
Yeah.
Is that actually part of a Family Guide episode? I've seen that one a million times. You fast forwarded, anything will make you laugh. Why do you fast forward them? That cat just stuck his head in that person's mouth and she fell. What the heck? All right, go. What are you doing? Eating? Are you done eating?
Yeah.
All right, didn't Dad ask you to do something?
Did.
Please do it. Nick. I know. I know what you're watching. Now, please, go do as your dad asked. Nick. Stop watching Perry. And Dinkelberg. Is that what his name? What's his name?
Disrespect.
Do-
You know.
Doofensmurf? What's his name?
Just look at fans affair.
Well, no, say it again.
This person right here. Look before the fake. Doofin.
Oh, Doofensmirts. All right, now please go do as your dad asked.
It was dishes.
Yeah, but you haven't done them. Can you do them, please?
I left the bathroom and he did the.
Please. Okay. He might get them done. I don't know. The apartment was haunted by the ghost of long departed cabbage. In the far bedroom, Cassie screamed, whooped, and was silent. Bradley had told Richards with a kind of angry shame that he should not mind her. She had cancer in both lungs, and recently it had spread upward into her throat and down into her belly. She was 5. Stacy had gone out back out somewhere as he and Bradley spoke together. The maddening aroma of simmering ground beef, vegetables, and tomato sauce began to fill the room, driving the cabbage back into the corners and making Richards realize how hungry he was. I could turn you in, man. I could kill you and steal all the money. Turn in the body, get $1,000 more bucks, and it'd be easy street. I don't think you could do that, Richard said. I know I couldn't. Why are you doing it anyway? Bradley asked irritably. Oh, Lord. Why are you being their sucker? You that greedy? My little girl's name is Kathy, Richard said. Younger than Kathy. Casey, pneumonia. She cries all the time, too. Bradley said nothing. She could get better. Not like her in there. Pneumonia is no worse than a cold. But you have to have medicine and a doctor. That costs money. I went for the money the only way I could. You're still a sucker, Bradley said with flat, somehow uncanny emphasis. You sucking off half the world, and they coming in your mouth every night at 6:30. Your little girl would be better off like Cassie in this world. I don't believe that. Then you ballsier than me, man. I put a guy in the hospital once with a rupture. Some rich guy, cops chased me 3 days. Bet you ballsier than me. He took a cigarette and lit it. Maybe you'll go to the whole month. $1 billion? You have to buy a fucking freight train to haul it off. Don't swear. Praise God, the old woman said from across the room where she was slicing carrots. Bradley paid no attention. You and your wife and little girl would be on Easy Street then. You got 2 days already. No, Richard said. The game's rigged. You know those 2 things I gave Stacy to mail when you and your mama went out for groceries? I have to mail 2 of those every day before midnight. He explained to Bradley about the forfeit clause and his suspicion that they had traced him to Boston by postmark. Easy to beat that. How? Never mind. Later. How you gonna get out of Boston? You awfully hot. Made 'em mad, blowing up their oinkers at the YMCA. They had freebie on that tonight. And those ones you took with the bag over your head, that was pretty sharp, man. He finished irritably. When's that stuff gonna be ready? We're falling away to shadows right before you. She's coming on, Ma said. She popped the cover over the rich, slowly bubbling mass and walked slowly into the bedroom to sit by the girl. I don't know, Richard said. I'll try to get a car, I guess. I've got fake papers, but I don't dare use them. I'll do something, wear dark glasses, get out of the city. I've been thinking about going to Vermont and then crossing over into Canada. Bradley grunted and got up to put plates on the table. By now, they got every highway going out of Beantown blocked. A man wearing dark glasses calls attention to himself. They'll turn you into monkey meat before you get 6 miles. Then I don't know, Richard said. If I stay here, they'll get you for an accessory. Bradley began spreading dishes. Suppose we get a car. You got the squeezing green. I got the name that isn't hot. There's a spick on Milk Street that'll sell me a Wint for $300. I'll get one of my buddies to drive it up to Manchester. It'll be cool as a fool in Manchester because you're bottled up in Boston. You eatin', Ma? Yeah, and praise God. She waddled out of the bedroom. Your sister's sleeping a little. Good. He ladled up 3 dishes of hamburger gumbo and then paused. Where's Stacy? Said he was going to the drug, Ma said it complacently, shoveling gumbo into her toothless maw at the blinding speed. Said he'd gone to get medicine. If he gets busted, I'll break his ass, Bradley said, sitting heavily. He won't, Richard said. He's got money. Yeah, maybe we don't need no charity money, Greamy. Richards laughed and salted his meal. I'd probably be slabbed now if it weren't for him, he said. I guess it was earned money. Bradley leaned forward, concentrating on his plate. None of them said anything more until the meal was done. Richards and Bradley had 2 helpings. The woman had 3. And as they were lighting cigarettes, a key scratched in the lock, and all of them stiffened until Stacy came in, looking guilty, frightened, and excited. He was carrying a brown bag in one hand, and he gave Ma the bottle of medicine. That's prime dope, he said. That old man Curry asked me where I got $2 and sent me 5 cents to buy prime dope. And I told him to go shit in a boot and eat it. Don't swear or the devil will poke you, Ma said. Here's dinner. The boy's eyes widened. Jesus, there's meat in it. Nah, we just shat in it to make it thicker, Bradley said. The boy looked up sharply, saw his brother was joking, giggled, and fell to. Will that druggist go to the cops? Richards asked quietly. Curry? Nah. Not if there might be some more squeezing green in this family. He knows Casey's got to have heavy dope. What about the Manchester thing? Yeah, well, Vermont's no good. Not enough of our kind of people. Tough cops. I got some good fella like Rich Golian to drive that Wint to Manchester and park it in an automatic garage. Then I drive up in another car. He crushed out a cigarette in the trunk. They'll be using jiffy sniffers on the back road. We'll go right up 495. Pretty dangerous for you, Richard said. I wasn't gonna do it free. When Casey goes, she's gonna go out wrecked. Praise God, Ma said. She's pretty dangerous for you. Still pretty dangerous for you. And Pig grunts at Bradley. He makes some shit in their boot and eat it. Stacy said, wiping his mouth. When he looked at Bradley, his eyes glittered with the flat shine of hero worship. You're dripping on your shirt, Skinner, Bradley said. He knuckled Stacy's head. You beaten your meat yet, Skinner? Ain't big enough, are you? If they catch us, you'll go in for a long bomb, Richard said. Who's going to take care of the boy? He'll take care of himself. If something happens, Bradley said. Himself and Ma here. He's not hooked on nothing. Are you, Stacy? Stacy shook his head emphatically. And he knows if I find any pricks in his arm, I'll beat his brains out. Ain't that right, Stacy? Stacy nodded. Besides, we can use the money. This is a hurtin' family. So don't say no more about it. I guess I know what I'm doing. Richards finished his cigarette in silence while Bradley went in to give Casey some medicine. So, we're going to stop there because I'm getting a little tired. We'll start in 063, hopefully tomorrow. Depends on how I'm feeling. Keep the dog from getting it. I'm going to try to drink some hot tea and probably sit down with the regulators and read that for a little bit. It's actually pretty good. Stephen King, even as Richard Bauchman, he's a good writer. I think he's an excellent writer personally. But, yeah, it's really different. So, for some reason, I'm missing a part of it, but that's okay. I can put a new cover on it. I just look for it. I'm using a piece of the book as a bookmark. It's actually pretty neat, isn't it? Yeah, I think so anyway. It works as a bookmark. So, but hopefully y'all have had a good day. Hopefully y'all had a good day yesterday. I wanted to work this week on my stuff and I don't have the energy. So I've been laying in bed most of the day. I finally was able to get up a little bit. I wanted to get a little bit of time in. I know it's not a heck of a lot of time like most people, but it's all right. So I'm going to let y'all go. Hopefully y'all have a good weekend, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow or Sunday, depending on how I'm feeling. I have hiccups now. All right. God bless, and thank you for joining me for our small read. Bye.